If there's anything people seem to love these days, it's a good crossover. There's just something great about seeing your favorite characters across different works come together and interact with each other. It feels like this is especially true in the world of animation. In the recent years, the amount of crossovers seem to have ballooned, including the likes of Space Jam 2, the Rescue Rangers reboot, and many others. But what about the crossovers that lie right under our noses? Through the amazing creativity of fans, we've put together a list of cartoon crossovers that maybe, just maybe, happened without anyone knowing it. Or maybe they're merely fanfiction. Either way, let's get to the bottom of all this. I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and this is Cartoon Crossover Theories BS to Truth Bombs. First off, let's look at the theories that have been debunked by creators, don't have sufficient evidence to prove them as true, or just have too many holes in their logic. Putting it simply, these theories are bullshit. Tarzan is the brother of Anna and Elsa. This theory is pretty quick to the point. After the release of Frozen, fans began to speculate what happened to the parents of Anna and Elsa. Their answer? They had another child, a boy, before ending up in the jungle and dying at the hands of a leopard. That boy, of course, grew up to be Tarzan. While it may seem far-fetched, there are a few things that give this theory credence. Both Frozen and Tarzan are directed by the same animator, Chris Buck. Disney movies do have their fair share of connections between one another, as we'll see more of soon. Unfortunately, this one is straight up false. First off, Tarzan's parents bear little resemblance to the parents of the Frozen sisters. There also exists a notable amount of time between Frozen and Tarzan. The former takes place sometime in the 1830s, while the latter was set in the early 20th century. Some time could take place between when they had the sisters and Tarzan, but over 70 years seems like overkill, wouldn't you say? The biggest reason this is false though, Frozen 2 released just a few years after the original and finally told the story of what happened to Anna and Elsa's parents.
Why they don't just make the whole ship waterproof?
Without going too much into details, there were no secret siblings or leopards involved in this story. While this theory definitely has some creativity, the noticeable differences between both movies' worlds, as well as the fact that the sequel flat out debunks it, makes this crossover not a possibility. Ariel and Hercules are cousins. We're not done with the secret siblings just yet. This popular theory ties the worlds of Hercules and The Little Mermaid together, arguing that the protagonists of both films are actually cousins. Why is that? Zeus, Hercules' father, has a son named Triton in Greek mythology. That is the same name of Ariel's father in The Little Mermaid. Clearly, they must be connected, right? Well, it's not quite that simple. First off, the Hercules universe does have a Triton. He appears in the TV series based off the movie and is radically different from the one depicted in The Little Mermaid. Not only is his appearance different, but he is also depicted as Hercules' cousin, rather than his uncle. Besides that, if it were to be true, wouldn't Ariel be granted the powers of a god? Nothing we see in the movie seems to suggest that, further hindering this theory. While Triton and Zeus might be related in the realm of Greek gods, it's safe to say that Ariel and Hercules are not family in the world of Disney animation. These next theories have a bit more truth to them than the prior ones, but they could still use a lot of work. Still, you can't completely count them out. These theories are full of holes. Fairly OddParents and Danny Phantom have the same cast. Fans of the Nickelodeon show Danny Phantom and Fairly OddParents have noticed several similarities between the cast of both shows. For instance, Danny and Timmy both have the same hairstyle. Both interact with a black-haired girl who eventually becomes a love interest and even share the same voice actor. So, what if these connections were actually meant to show that Danny Phantom is just what became of the Fairly OddParents kids when they grew older? Timmy becomes Danny, Tootie becomes Sam, AJ is Tucker, the list goes on. It's definitely an interesting theory, but it unfortunately has too many holes in it to consider as a possibility. First, we see both what Timmy is like in the future as well as what Danny was like when he was younger, and never in either show is it implied that they are one and the same in these moments. Not only that, but we have seen characters from both shows interact with each other, and nothing in these crossovers suggests they are the same. One of these crossovers, an animated short featuring characters from all of Butch Hartman's Nicktoons, was made by Hartman himself. So you'd think that would have been brought up if it was accurate. Really, the similarity between characters is all chalked up to the fact that both shows are produced with the same art style. If you make a show in the same look as another one, characters are bound to look familiar. Is that really a call to say they are the same as each other? Not only that, but if this theory was true, when did Timmy Turner get a sister? The Pixar theory. Quite possibly the most famous cartoon crossover theory of them all, the Pixar theory was put together by writer John Negroni. It even has its own website and everything. In a nutshell, the Pixar theory explains that all of the movies exist in one world, and that they are really about an overreaching conflict between humans, animals, and machines. Eventually, the animals rise up and attempt to overthrow the machines, leading to the humans leaving Earth. This means Cars takes place in the far-off future. Eventually, the human race is extinguished, but animals and machines realize this is a mistake. This culminates in the Monsters, Inc. films, which showcase the doors as being portals to the generations where humans once lived. While the theory is the most creative out of any on this whole list, we do take issues with a few things in it. First off, there are some leaps in logic that completely disregard what is presented in the movies. We see references to A Bug's Life in Toy Story 2, yet this theory persists that Bug's life happened hundreds of years after the Toy Story movies. The idea of Cars being set in a far-off future, or the idea that toys in Toy Story come to life thanks to Syndrome's technology, also seem way too far-fetched to be true. It makes this theory feel more like mere speculation, rather than using what the films present to establish a cohesive timeline. Another thing that hurts this theory is the fact that it hasn't been updated in quite some time. More recent titles like Turning Red, Inside Out, and Soul are not mentioned at all in this theory, and we can't for the life of us imagine where they'd fit in. Maybe one day the creator of this theory will create a new and improved Pixar theory, finding further connections between both the older and more recent movies. But until then, we're gonna go ahead and say this theory's been busted. All the 90s/2000s Cartoon Network shows exist in one universe. Another theory that connects shows of a particular studio into one world, this common fan theory states that all of the Cartoon Network shows released throughout the 90s and 2000s occupy one universe. From Powerpuff Girls to Ben 10 to Kids Next Door, they are all part of one larger world. We can also assume this means that this world is eventually taken over by the villain Aku, at least if Samurai Jack is anything to go by. This theory is widely believed because the shows that aired on the network during this time did frequently crossover. Promos between shows would repeatedly feature characters interact with one another, and even the shows themselves would reference each other. Often these would be quick cameos, like the time Mandy appeared in Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, but other times they would be more direct, such as the crossover episode between Kids Next Door and Billy and Mandy. Also, helping this theory is the fact that nothing depicted in these shows themselves necessarily contradict events in any of the other series. There are a few things that turn this theory sour, however. While promos did feature the characters together, these promos would often include characters from the Hanna-Barbera and DC comic libraries as well. The version of DC characters like Batman would change drastically between promos, usually including whatever version of the character was in animation at the time. Clearly, these all cannot be the same Batman, so are there just multiple versions of the Caped Crusader running around? We think not. Creators themselves have also noted these crossovers planted between shows were just them having fun with each other and not major hints of a shared universe or anything like that. The CN shared universe theory doesn't have as many holes in it as the Pixar theory does, but it still could be thought out a little bit better if we are to accept it as truth. The Disney animated canon is one story. It is widely believed by Disney fans that the Disney animated canon, the full-length animated films released by Disney, all take place in one universe. From classics like Snow White and Pinocchio to recent films like Encanto and Raya, they are all part of the same world. There certainly is some sense in this theory. A lot of talent is reused from film to film. The different settings of each film help prevent them from contradicting another. And there are a few references to other movies scattered throughout. Hercules, for example, features the titular character wear what is clearly the fur of Scar from The Lion King in one scene. There is just one tiny little problem with this theory. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to House of Mouse. Premiering on Disney in 2001, this show featured characters from nearly every Disney movie produced to that date, coexisting at the same time. If we look at this as canon, then the movies cannot occupy different parts of a timeline if they all exist alongside one another. Disney's TV output in general appears to create a lot of conundrums for this theory. The Aladdin and Hercules series actually crossed over with each other, despite the movies clearly taking place in different points in world history. And let's not even get into all the weird crossovers the Lilo and Stitch animated series had with other Disney cartoons, cause that's its own can of worms. Ultimately, we have to conclude that it's far more likely each film takes place in its one separate world, and any winks or nods made are just cheeky fun the animators are having. Now, it's time to look at the theories that might have some holes in them, but the likelihood of them being true outweighs their issues. These theories are possible. Richie Rich is Casper. Throughout the years, many people have noticed some similarities between cartoon characters Richie Rich and Casper the Friendly Ghost. What's the deal there? Well, some fans argue that Casper is actually the ghost of Richie Rich. The theory is so widespread that even The Simpsons poked fun at it.
Perhaps he realized how hollow the pursuit of money is and took his own life.
As strange as it may seem, there is decent evidence that they are one and the same. Both characters are the creation of Harvey Comics, and they do indeed share some features in regards to design. There are also no particularly huge holes in the logic of this theory. Yes, Casper and Richie have crossed over in comics throughout the years, but crossovers are rarely ever considered canon, especially in the world of comic books. Shouldn't Casper at least recognize his supposed past self though? Not necessarily, as he could have always lost his memory when becoming a ghost, which would also explain his huge personality shift. It does seem entirely likely that the spoiled Richie Rich passed on and became a much friendlier ghost afterwards. While this theory isn't perfect, it does have a lot more evidence backing it up than prior ones. The stop-motion Tim Burton films exist in one universe. One thing that fans of Tim Burton's animated movies have noticed is how similar the protagonists tend to look. For the most part, they're all tall, lanky, and pale men. So, what if we told you that Frankenweenie, The Corpse Bride, and The Nightmare Before Christmas are part of one world, and that the protagonist in each is the same between films? Frankenweenie shows us the character as a young boy, Corpse Bride is him as a man, and The Nightmare Before Christmas is him in the afterlife. Why does he have different names in each movie if he's the same though? Tim Burton movies are often focused on outcasts, so maybe the character changes names as an attempt to reinvent himself. Really, the only major hurdle in this theory is the setting of the movies. The Corpse Bride is very much based on Victorian designs, while Frankenweenie looks more modern in comparison. While this doesn't make a lot of sense, it is an animated universe after all. Who's to say aesthetics didn't march backwards in this world? Whether you buy into this theory or not, one thing is for sure. Tim Burton loves his lanky and awkward outcasts. Flapjack and Adventure Time share the same world. The universe of Adventure Time has always been one shrouded in mystery. Numerous fan theories have attempted to make sense of the world, but one opted to connect the world to the marvelous misadventures of Flapjack, another Cartoon Network show that aired around the same time. Created by Reddit user The Narwhal King, the theory states that both Flapjack and Adventure Time are going on at about the same point in time. Stormalong Harbor, the home Flapjack inhabits, is built out of the debris of the Mushroom War. The much sought after Candied Island that Flapjack is so desperate to see is actually the Candy Kingdom from Adventure Time. This theory does have a lot going for it. Several crew members for Adventure Time had worked on Flapjack before the former was greenlit, so there is definitely some similarities in tone and aesthetic. Both shows also do have pretty similar stories, what with both being about adventurers who hang around candy. The only thing that holds the theory back is the fact there isn't a lot that connects Adventure Time to Flapjack's world. All that we've mentioned connects Flapjack to the universe of Adventure Time, but nothing of the same is done the other way around. Still, this theory has more going for it than most shared universe theories. Who's to say that the adventures of Finn and Flapjack aren't connected in some small way? We've now reached the theories that are more likely than most. These theories are probable. Bill Cipher was created by Rick Sanchez's wife. This theory comes from Reddit user ShyNico, who created a theory that connects the world of Rick and Morty to Gravity Falls. In a Season 2 episode titled Big Trouble in Little Sanchez, a screen appears while Beth and Jerry undergo marriage counseling, showing Bill Cipher, the main antagonist of Gravity Falls. Clearly, this must mean Gravity Falls has some sort of connection to the events of Rick and Morty. However, the theory goes even deeper. What if Diane, Rick's wife, created Billy while the two went through counseling at the same place? Rick then creates a safety protocol regarding Cypher, which is why we see him in the aforementioned episode. There's definitely credence to suggest this theory is legitimate. The creators of both shows are good friends with each other, for one. The worlds of Gravity Falls and Rick and Morty are also crazy enough for this to be an actual part of the lore. Perhaps Bill Cipher really did escape the Rick and Morty universe and eventually ended up in Gravity Falls. It sounds crazy, but in the world of both of these shows, anything crazy is possible. Now we reach the theories that have so much evidence they have to be true. These theories are the truth bombs. Flintstones and the Jetsons take place at the same time. It's usually believed that while the Jetsons are the family of the future, the Flintstones are the family of the past. But those people are wrong, because there's so much more to the story than that. What if both shows are happening simultaneously? In the Jetsons, we never see what's going on the ground, only in the sky. What if the ground is the world of the Flintstones, who are the lower class workers of this world compared to their rich, skybound counterparts? This would explain a lot of oddities about the Flintstones universe, such as how they celebrate Christmas and why their world has so much in common with modern life. A lot of people will point to the crossover movie between the two as evidence that they don't coexist, but we will argue otherwise. Yes, they use a time machine to travel to the Flintstones world, but what if it malfunctioned? Or they had accidentally made a teleporter instead and had no clue? Hey, it certainly fits the Jetsons family. The characters have interacted in other pieces of media, and that didn't require a time machine. As insane as it sounds, it appears that the Flintstones and Jetsons coexisting is a real possibility. Jack is in Monsters, Inc. In the Pixar film Monsters, Inc., there is a scene where several monsters are interviewed, and they explain what happened when they encountered the human Boo. They say the child blasted a car with laser vision and possessed mind powers.
Kid flew right over me and blasted a car with its laser vision.
That doesn't sound anything like Boo, but it does sound a lot like the superpowered infant Jack, a major character in the Incredibles franchise. Many fans began to pick up on this after the release of The Incredibles 2, and it certainly makes sense. Not only does Jack have both laser and mind powers, but he can also shift through different realities. who's to say he didn't enter the Monsters Inc. universe for a brief moment in the second movie? It doesn't necessarily contradict anything in either movie, instead fitting perfectly within the context of them. It could have even been the result of Pixar playing around with the previously analyzed Pixar theory, showing that the movies do have some connections, just not the ones that the theory looked at. With all this evidence in mind, we have to believe that Jack-Jack is in Monsters Inc. in some small way. Perhaps Jack-Jack himself is actually the real glue holding the Pixar universe together. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos.